Not quite 2007. I think it was 2008, 2009 when we first moved the company down here to LA. And in fact, just to back up, American Credit, I founded the company 13 years ago, and specifically with the goal in mind of working with lenders and realtors only. A lot of credit repair companies out there want to take over the entire country. They want to enroll everyone. I knew early on that the lenders needed a really solid firm to work with, and worked with lenders early on to sort of build and strategize with what challenges they were faced with our industry to help overcome the fears that go along with that. I know, how many of you have ever heard of credit repair or worked with credit repair? Pretty much all of you. Let me tell you a little bit about the two types of credit repair approaches used so you can understand the difference between the two. Our firm utilizes an approach that's only used by about 5% of our industry. How many of you have heard of dispute letters? Have you heard of sending out the letters? A lot of you. Dispute letters have been around for 20, 25 years now since this type of approach was discovered. And there's a loophole that exists in the law, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and I'm sure you've all heard of that law. That loophole allows these items that are on the credit report to be removed through a legal approach. Dispute letters were created or designed by an attorney a long time ago that capitalized on that loophole that exists in the law. And to give you an idea as to why that law was passed, back in the 70s when they first passed the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they passed it for two reasons. They wanted to hold the creditors that receive the information, reporting it to the credit bureaus, accountable for how they report that information. So they created that law to help set up a series of guidelines that the lenders and the creditors have to follow when reporting information to the bureaus. Excuse me. The other reason they passed that law is they wanted to give the clients the right to verify that information whenever they felt there was a mistake. And so through the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the client is allowed to challenge those items. And that's where dispute letters came about. Some smart attorneys figured out early on in the 80s that you could send in letters, and there's a 30-day timer written into that law that says the creditors have to verify that item within 30 days and prove it's accurate, or else the credit bureaus have to delete it. So once the dispute letter approach was born, a lot of people were using that, and then it became a way that people could manipulate the system to get items deleted. So fast forward time 10, 15 years, to when we started the company, we thought dispute letters were the way to go. When I started the company, we were sending out dispute letters for the first 2 years. And through the first 2 years, interacting with lenders, we were learning about the challenges you guys were facing with our industry in general. And initially, I'll admit, I wasn't aware there were challenges. I thought we had discovered DICE. You know, I thought we were the first ones to market. Little did I know, a lot of lenders had already tried it with other firms. Those firms fell short, the expectations they were setting weren't met, or the results weren't coming in. So the first 2 years I started to see the results come in. They were decent, but the problem I saw was these items that were getting deleted through that approach were coming back. So I don't know if any of you have used a firm that maybe fell short of your expectations, but probably one of the reasons you're not with them now is the results. And if an item gets deleted from the credit report, the client score jumps, they enter into escrow. When that item comes back, sometimes underwriters will re-pull the credit and they'll see that item reappear, causing that client to kick out of escrow. So early on when I saw this happening, I knew this wasn't scalable. We couldn't grow the company. There was another firm in town that, we were in Redding, by the way, this is Northern California where I'm from. There was another firm in town that was charging clients $3,000 to $5,000, and they were referring their clients that couldn't afford that rate over to us because we were in the same town. And I just couldn't believe he was charging that much money for those rates. And so I ended up meeting with him and talking with him over the course of time, discovered what he was doing differently, and the results he was achieving were far different than what I was getting. And I learned about the pre-litigation approach that we now use. And to just give you the difference between that, the difference between a dispute letter approach and a pre-litigation approach is simply this. A dispute letter, you simply write a letter and send it to the credit bureaus, and you ask the credit bureaus to look into that account, causing that 30-day timer to run its course, hoping that some of those items will come off in that 30-day period as a result of the lender or the creditor not responding back in time. What a pre-litigation approach is that's different is we actually take a copy of that law, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, send it from the client directly to the creditor first, and we ask the creditor to verify that account from the client's perspective, and we threaten that creditor with legal action first prior to ever involving the credit bureaus. The reason we do that is we want the creditor to see that client as a legal and viable threat prior to ever involving the credit bureau, because the creditor, once they see the client isn't someone sending in a cookie cutter letter, they're a lot less likely to respond back and verify that account, because now they see that client differently. They know what their rights are. They send a copy of that law in for proof. And they're actually saying to the creditor, if you didn't report this information, I know what my rights are. I could be entitled to damages for misreported information. Write this down. If you guys Google much, Google these 3 keywords, and I want you to see a court case that kind of shows this in full circle. Google Portland, Oregon, Equifax, it's one of the 3 bureaus, EQUIFAX, and then $18.6 million. When you get a chance, Google that. There was a court case that happened a few years ago where a lady had an item on her credit report that was a mistake. She immediately contacted the 3 bureaus. 2 of them removed it immediately, but Equifax didn't. She went round and round with them for 2 years, and she was trying to help co-sign for her disabled brother to purchase a vehicle. And the Supreme Court got wind of this case and ended up awarding in her favor and forced Equifax to pay her an $18.6 million settlement for not removing or correcting that account, because that's what the Fair Credit Reporting Act says they have to do. And so this is a real clear example of how the creditors know what kind of damages they could be faced with if they don't report the information correctly or follow what the Fair Credit Reporting Act says. So how can all of this make you money? How can you guys use credit repair and give our industry another shot? I understand where you're at. I've been dealing with lenders for 13 years. We have about 1,500 that use us nationwide. I think there's a lot of people in the room here that we know. Ann Bose, we know you. How are you? I've seen Fadwa recently. I haven't seen Fadwa since we were in the Water Garden over in 2008, 2009. And quite a few other lenders here. Nilu, Nina, use us. But lenders all across the country that give our firm a shot are using us consistently, because it's not going to convert every client you send us into a funded loan. I'd be lying up here to tell you that if it did. But realistically, if you use us consistently, it will make you more money. And here's a realistic expectation for you. For every 5 clients we enroll for a lender that follow our guidelines, we convert on average 1 to 2 out of those 5 into a funded loan. So on average, a lender, I think, is closing about 2 loans a month nationwide. I think that's about the average. So if there's 600 of you here at Skyline, you guys are closing somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 loans a month. That's just a guess. I don't know your numbers. What that means is for every loan you close, you're probably taking 3 to 4 applications. You're turning down clients because they either can't prove their income, the values aren't there on the home, or their credit. It's usually one of those 3 things. So my rule of thumb is usually one of the 3 that you turn down is being turned down because of issues on their credit. How can you use an industry or a firm like ours to make more money? Allow us to communicate with that client, to look at their credit report and analyze it to see if they're a good fit for our program. One of the other things that I did early on was I created a filter, in a sense, to make sure that we don't enroll everyone. We only want to enroll clients that we feel are within reach of being helped to qualify. So a client, for example, in the 400 score, 450 score range is probably in a tailspin financially. They haven't caught up on their past due accounts. They're maybe 3, 4, 5 payments behind on the car loan. That's a client that we're going to guide financially to get back on track before we involve them. A lot of companies out there will just enroll everyone. We want to pre-screen these clients for you so that the ones you're sending us have a clean shot at getting back to you approved. On average, we hit about a 70 to 100 point increase on the client's score. And like I said, we take that client's credit report in, we run it through our system where we have a MyFICO certified analyst that goes through the report top to bottom. We'll send that report back to the client and you, and then go over our projections before we even enroll the client. So that way you feel comfortable with what we project, what guidelines we're going to recommend, and then we'll move to enroll the clients, and we'll bend over backwards to get the client enrolled for you. So that's a little bit about what we do. That's why you want to use our firm. And to tell you a little bit more about us, when we met Scott and Bill, we've been working with you guys ever since, and it's just been a pleasure working with you all. So if you would like to, who's that back there? Do you have a question? How are you? If you guys do have questions, I don't have much time up here. Get a hold of Michael Lund. Michael Lund is my senior representative. I brought him here today. Do you want to come up here real quick? Michael Lund is one of my stars. He's been with me for going on 3 years, 3 years now, and he's a relationship manager. So his job is to work directly with lenders. I brought him on board because he's already working with quite a few of the lenders here in this office and would love to work with any of the clients out there that you guys have or any lenders that haven't worked with us yet. So I believe through Scott or through Bill, you'll be able to get Michael's information. But communicate with Michael if you have more questions, or me directly, no problem. Also, if you have client scenarios you want to run by us, just send it over and we'll happily look at the scenario and see if the client's a good fit for us. Okay? Anything else? Yeah. We do. Our website, our website is www.americancreditrepair.net. Michael Lund's email is Michael Lund, L-U-N-D, all one word, at americancreditrepair.net. Those of you that have results in front of you here, take a look at those. You'll see some recent results for clients we've done work for. Anything on your client's credit report can be deleted because it has to be reported according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and it has to be verified accurate within 30 days. The credit bureaus just don't want anything to do with an account that's not verified as accurate. And last thing, our fees range depending on how much work is involved. It's a case-by-case basis. So we analyze the report and assess the fee, but here's the range. Anywhere from $850 to $1,500, depending on how much work is involved, and that gets the client a 6-month enrollment into our program. Usually in 90 days, 75 to 90 days, clients will see the biggest jump in their score, somewhere between 75 and 100 points. All right? Thank you, guys.